So I'm Fiona. I am a teacher librarian, and I'm a member of two book clubs. Candace's is one of them, and then I have a Caledon Ladies Book Club too. I am not a very good attender at Candace's book club, which I'm going to put out there right now. And I'm also the past chair of the Peel Fiction Review Committee, and I work on The Fold, and then I do this with Anne. So I read a lot, I try to read a lot, and book clubs have been, well, quite frankly, they've been a core part of my social life for a number of years now. Susan, you're next on my screen. I was wondering if you could share a little bit.
Thanks for having me. I'm from Brantford, Ontario. I work as a nurse manager in community care, and so my job's pretty serious, but outside of work, I really like to read. So I do have an in-person book club. I'm running a book club right now at work called One Book, One West, where we're reading about some social issues and trying to get people together to learn and understand a little bit more about other people's situations and lives so that we can help. So I also write a book blog called the Year of Books blog.com. So that's a little fun thing I do on the side. And I have a little free library that I like to share books in my neighborhood with. So that's a little bit of my reading history.
That's really great. Candace, you're next. Candace T. Oh, we can't. There you go.
I got to mute myself. So, hey, everybody, I'm Candace. I'm originally from Halifax, which why I bring that up is because it's cold and it snows a lot. And so I used to read a lot. So from day one, I'm a huge reader of everything. I even remember the SRAs. I loved those growing up. And my friends and I would even have little book clubs by grade 6, I remember. I came to Ontario. I'm a member. I've known Fiona, I'll say it, 18 years. And so I'm a member of a number of book clubs that come and go. Currently, I think I'm in 2. One point I was in 4. And I just, I love the opportunity to meet, to talk about things and to read things that I might not have read otherwise, and to have good friends or people I'm comfortable enough to have a discussion.
Hey, I'm Davina. I'm from Calgary, and I've been part of several book clubs at one point, 3, but now I'm only part of 1. I'm kind of like the default secretary of it. We've been around for about 14 years. I'm part of neighborhood book clubs. I enjoy reading a lot. I used to be a teacher, and then when I started having my kids, I stayed home and have been facilitating their lives and stuff. I try to read a lot, and I'm glad to be part of this.
Hi, I'm Donna. I'm presently living in Winnipeg. I'm a Manitoban, but I've lived in Toronto and Calgary and lots of places in between. I'm a retired teacher. I taught English and history. Right now I'm in 2 book clubs, one that I've been in for a couple of years and one that just started sort of with the pandemic, a bunch of people who were interested in socializing. Lately we've been doing it over Zoom, and hope to have a couple of fall meetings. So that's me. Nice to meet you all.
I just want to introduce myself. I'm Caroline, and I have been a teacher, retired teacher now, an English teacher at Central Peel in Ontario. I have been a member of at least 3 book clubs, now 2. One is now and again meets. And I'm very happy to meet all of you.
Hi, everybody. My name's Don. I'm a teacher in Peel, so I live in Brampton, Ontario, and I teach grade 3, and I've been an avid book reader ever since I could hold anything, really, mainly fantasy and fiction, but recently I've been in a book club dealing with nonfiction. So far, so good. And I've always wanted to be in a book club, but never could get into one. So I'm interested in hearing all of your book club escapades and how that works. And I want to have a listening ear. So thank you for welcoming me, and nice to meet you all.
Hello, everybody. My name is also Candace. I go by Can. I have my own cleaning business, and I'm from Kitchener, Ontario. So because I love audiobooks, I get to listen to about 3 to 5 audiobooks a week while I'm doing my business. And I'm part of 2 book clubs. I was part of a 3rd one but that one just kind of broke down. So I'm into actively. We meet monthly. So.
Now, I'm curious, like, to me, that makes it sound like you can actually write off like Audible as a business expense. That's a fantastic idea. Like, seriously, so who doesn't want to do that?
I get a lot from Audible, and also like the library is a great source for audiobooks. So with the download library.
I'm Judith. I'm a secondary school vice principal. I am a voracious reader, and I will admit that my guilty pleasure is Pride and Prejudice fan fiction. And I'm currently a member of a book club at work, which really just gives me an excuse to take an actual lunch hour once a month.
How do you choose books, and does your book club have a particular mandate? So, and this is, I think we can just, now that we've sort of introduced each other, I'd like to kind of move to a more free flow conversation. So if somebody just wants to jump in, do you have a particular mandate, and how do you choose?
Well, in our book club, we have a couple of different book clubs, but this one is a particular group of retired teachers, and they get to pick the book that they want and host the meeting. And it can be anything but nonfiction and poetry. So fiction, particularly. It's usually something quite modern or recent, but it doesn't have to be. So we've done, for instance, Daughters of Copper Woman by Anne Cameron, and that's way back there, but this was one that she wanted to introduce. And we don't have any particular mandate. We do like Canadian literature more so than anything else. And I think at this point, we're also trying to read Indigenous works and that which is also topical in society and politics at this point.
Anybody else? How do you choose, and the mandate, if you have one?
Hi there. So I'm in 2 book clubs. My personal book club is a little bit free-flowing. We just have a conversation. Right now, we're reading CanLit for the whole year. So that's been an interesting year. We have theme months. So we'll have a month which is all about Canada Reads, which is how I got connected with Fiona. We have this month, we're doing Evergreen Reads and reading more great Canadian literature. In my work book club, we're reading about Black Lives Matter. So I had 5 books that I'd read personally, and I sent those out to the group to choose one of the books. So we chose The Skin We're In, and we're reading that. I'm going to have discussion in October. So a little bit of different focus in both of those book clubs, but I think the great thing is we read things that we might not always read and have some great discussions.
And it's nice. The Skin We're In is also, when I've been trying to make lists for Black Lives Matters, and so much of it comes out of the States, and so The Skin We're In is so important because of course it's a Canadian journalist and a Canadian author, so that's always great.
I think it makes us think about things that we may have missed in the news, and for me personally, it makes me realize I need to pay a lot more attention to what's going on in my own country. And my hope as a person of privilege is that we're all talking together and learning more from the experts, like Desmond Cole, who's written this book.
I cut off somebody else. Sorry, Donna, go.
Okay. In our book club, I think there's 12 of us in one of the book clubs. And at the end of the year, we all get together and everybody brings sort of one book that they pitch, but they can also pitch a couple of books. And then we just sort of get together over lunch and a glass of wine, if you so want to indulge. And we just pitch the books, and then we decide what we're going to read. Generally, it works out that almost everybody gets one of their picks, but sometimes not. And we're okay with that. We try to read a wide variety of fiction and nonfiction, Canadian and not Canadian. And I think that's one of the real benefits of a book club, is getting to read very diverse books and things that you wouldn't necessarily read. We're also reading The Skin We're In for our September book. So we do try and pick things that are important to our community at the time. We also had the chance to read The Ghost Garden last spring and had Susan Doherty come in and do a Zoom meeting with us. So things like that are also nice when you actually get a connection to the author as well.
Do you meet once a month, Donna?
Yes, that book club meets once a month. My other book club meets probably, is just setting up, but we'll probably only do once every 2 months. So.
Anybody else? Mandate and how you pick. Davina, if you could just share your story, because I thought it was really cute when we connected before about, so one of your book clubs you talked about, and originally your name and mandate and how that's kind of morphed, if you don't mind sharing.
Yeah. So the book club that I'm currently in, because all the others have kind of fizzled out or turned into wine club. So this book club actually was started by somebody else, probably like maybe 16-ish years ago or more. I joined it about 14 years ago, and it was actually called the Brown Girls Book Club. And we were obviously a bunch of South Asian women, and we only actually read South Asian authored books. And then from there, it kind of morphed into just a regular book club, and people changed. People moved away, people came back. And at one point, we had like probably 20 members. Now we have about 13 or 14 active members, and people really want to be part of our book club, but we put a cap on it. And we've moved away from just reading South Asian authors because it really pigeonholed us. And I don't know if you have read South Asian books before, but sometimes it kind of has the same theme, and after a while we felt like we were reading the same books. So over the years, for the past 14 years, we've gone through where if you were hosting it, you got to choose the book. And then we kind of went through where you bring a book title and then we'll vote on it at the time. And then we got tired of doing that. And so then we would do Canada Reads or maybe an Oprah Book Club choice. A couple of years ago, we decided to do genres, and we picked a genre for each month and chose a book. We always say that we want to pre-choose our books, because I know some people choose their books ahead of time for the season. And our reading season is a school year, so it's from September to June. But we found that everybody would come each time and want to change it every month, so we just choose our book monthly and kind of go along with what's kind of in the news. And yeah, so that's how we choose our books.
So there's a couple of great things as you're coming up and talking this stuff. So some of you have alluded to this one already. What is the benefit of a book club? Like, why is it different to be in a book club than just, as so many readers are? It's it's an individual sport, as it were, and a book club makes it into a team sport. Why is that good, or why do you benefit from that?
Fiona, I'll just start with that one, and I like the analogy of a team club, and it is true because it's so individual reading. But what makes it so nice is to get together with people with different opinions and different feelings and what it meant to them, and it's really interesting. I'll have my own experience reading, but then to hear what someone else experienced, to hear what it meant to them. And in my book club and my two book clubs that are very regular, our format is that somebody hosts, they choose the book, and there's not really much of a vote. It's just like, I think this would be a good book to read. Sometimes, and I say in both book clubs, when you, Fiona, sometimes you get lucky, it's a really good read, and we do popular, I think we did Great Expectations, we did Dostoevsky. So we'll just try everything, actually. We're really open. And then what I like about both book clubs is that we'll also say, this was good. Now here's another book that's similar. So it's almost like we'll get, not homework, but then you get more books that if you like that genre, then you have something else to read. We don't have to talk about it. And then the next time we meet, the host, whoever was the last host, they get to lead the discussion. And some people are great at coming with pages of research. Another friend of mine sends out her research before we talk about the book, even when she's not host. So it's nice to have all those different kinds of opinions and ways that people approach it.
Don, please jump in.
I've only been in a book club during pandemic time, so all of my book clubs have been over Zoom or over technology. But one of the things that I really liked was that one of the hosts had created a message board where everybody could put in all of the what we call rabbit holes that they went down. So one of the books that we read in this group that we meet weekly was Colson Whitehead's Nickel Boys. And so there was a lot of research done and everybody posted everything that they were looking at, so everybody else could go in and take a look at what other people were looking at, either before or after, and then you could come with a deeper opinion or a deeper understanding, and you could jump right into the chapters that we were talking about, because all these other people had done research as well as you, and you could really have that deep connection. So I really like the fact that it gets me to think about other things that I haven't thought about, and see other opinions that I may not have seen before that I really like, and I get to hear it from a variety of different people.
Dawn, can I follow up with that? Because I can imagine that most of the other book clubs we're talking about, they had an in-person connection before all of this came down. How did your book club, your virtual book club, come about, and how is it to build a community when you can't actually involve wine? I'm sorry, was that out loud? Sorry.
Well, actually, it's not. With the book club, it's not one, with our book club anyway, for those of us that do drink. But a fellow by the name of Roland Chuddick and Chris Clough, who are both on Twitter, Roland runs a podcast, and he was asked one day in March or February why boys don't read. So he got to thinking, well, we do, but we don't really read, like we don't, a lot of boys don't typically read fiction. And he was challenged to start a book club. So it was a book club for men, and we've mainly picked nonfiction or non-fiction-based fiction. So Nickel Boys is based on a real place, but the story is fiction. And he put out a Twitter ask. He said, "Hey, is there anybody in my Twitterverse that wanted to start a book club? Come and join us." And he sent out a Zoom connection, and I've been hooked. I'm actually missing my book club meeting tonight for this. Because I wanted to talk about the book club I'm in here, because I think it's really important that other people see a wide variety of people actually do book clubs, and I'm really, really enjoying it. Sorry, I'm talking too much.
No, that's perfect. That's exactly why I specifically reached out to you, because I wanted to show that guys can do book clubs too, and the benefits are still probably remarkably similar, except just throwing it out there. Candace, Davina, either of you have anything to say about the benefits of your book club and why we should belong, or could belong, or might belong?
Candace, I'm going to chip in here. So the two book clubs I'm currently in, I found on Facebook. And I find the benefit is I've got to meet people that I wouldn't normally interact with. And one of our book clubs is really active with the library, and we get majority of our books through their book club sets. So we also attend book club events at our local library here in Kitchener. And we actually got to meet Jesse Thistle at one of the library events, and he zoomed in to our book club meeting. So that was neat. And it's just, I've expanded my book selection hugely. Like I've read all kinds of genres now, where before, I was very limited in what I was choosing to read. Now I listen to everything, nonfiction, fiction, memoir, you name it. I'm listening to it or reading it.
Candace, that's awesome. I love the shout out to the library too. Sorry, I can't help that.
Thank you for that shout out as well, because your library in Kitchener, it's worth it for me to make a trip for an hour to come to some of the events that you have there.
And they hold a mini fold and usually in the fall too, in the spring as well. They're a very active library. I know about them too. Davina, did you have something you wanted to add about? I mean, you said you've read your book club for 14 years, which is pretty cool.
It's pretty, yeah. So we had people, come and go, like I said. But I think the core of us, and like the person who started the book club, there is a bit of, there's always a bit of politics that happen, and people get annoyed at things and stuff. And so it's come and gone. But yeah, I think, like, so I've been part of it for 14 years, and I kind of keep it together. I'm like their secretary. I send out the emails. Like I said, we take turns hosting. So the last couple have been Zoom, but then over the summer we actually were just in each other's backyards, social distancing. And we'll probably resume back to Zoom. We've got one more social distancing one in September. And the benefits of the book club is that we definitely have a range of ages in my book club. So I'm probably one of the younger ones. There's probably a few more that are a little bit younger than me. So we go from about age 42, 43 to 60. And they're lovely ladies, and you get different perspectives. We've got, a few of us stay at home. There's a few professionals in there. There's retired people. And the benefits of the book club, everybody's got a different point of view. So sometimes I'm worried when I love a book and I'm scared to go to book club, because if you go to book club and everybody would be like, oh my goodness, that was the worst book ever. And you're like, but I really like that book. So it's just, it really shows you, what people are into. And because we've read so many books and most of us are really avid readers, the last couple of times, like, we use Goodreads as one of our bases of books. So we'll go on to Goodreads and we'll see what's the rating on there. And we sort of discovered lately that whilst a book might have a really high rating, it wasn't really the best written book. And so we've become, and I don't know if any of you have found this, whereas we're a really hard bunch of people to please. Like, we find it really hard to find a good book. And it is very, very rare that we all agree on a book that we loved. And I think the one book that comes to mind is Where the Crawdads Sing.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, that's literally the one book that I can say that all of us loved it. Because, so I think, like, because we are a seasoned group, we have very high expectations, and it's really hard to, like, wow us.
One of the things, and others have alluded to it, social justice issues are important, and book clubs are a great way to get that to grow. But then when I look at book clubs and talk to book clubs, so many of them are female and white. And then I wonder, is this in fact a kind of privilege that it's the white women who have the time and the finances, maybe, or the leisure to participate in this? And I wonder, is that a problem? And I don't even know where to place that, because obviously not a problem. Getting people reading and talking about books can never be a problem. But how do we, or are book clubs responsible for making choices that pull us all forward? And I don't even know where the question is there. That's just a comment / observation. Does anybody want to jump in with any of these things?
Yes, I do.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you first, then I'll come after you.
Sure?
That's
Okay.
fine. Sure.
I think it's a good question. I think book clubs are also very social. Mm-hmm. So, like, if you've joined one virtually over the pandemic, that's a little bit different. But if you've been part of a book club to that, it usually starts in something quite social. Like, I was part, when I was teaching, some of my teacher friends, we decided to have a book club. And so we would read professional books, sometimes personal books as well. So I do know, like, for us, obviously, when we started off, we called ourselves Brown Girls Book Club. And we called ourselves that for, I don't know, probably a good 5 to 7 years. And then it kind of changed. And now we're just book club, because we didn't want to give ourselves that kind of pigeonhole. And we stopped reading only South Asian authors. But I've been part of book clubs that are not, it's a good mix of people. Like, I've been part of a neighborhood book club where, I'm definitely like the minority, but, books bring people together as well. And it's a good opportunity to find, like, when you're in a group of people, sometimes you wouldn't choose certain books to read. I know I've been within my group, even though we are all South Asian. I know some of my friends as well, they are part of book clubs, and so I think there are avid readers out there. I don't necessarily think that it's only, you know, white privileged women who are part of book clubs. I think it is everywhere. Maybe we just don't all see it.
Carolyn.
Yeah, I have a bit of a different approach to this because our group are all retired women at this point. But before that, I was part of Central Peel's book club, which was, as was said before, a more teacher-oriented and a more rigorous one. We explored those books and we did our homework and we had our little post-it notes and we had things outlined and that we wanted to talk about. And it was much more of a deeper look, a more academic, but also then as we got comfortable doing that, we shifted into a more personal space. And I think that book clubs create eventually a sort of intimacy where people feel that they can expand on the bigger questions in the book by bringing into the discussion also their own stories and their own lives. And so we saw our book club more from just an interest in the books and coming together and talking about that in a thorough way to a place where we were starting to ask very big questions. We were 50 years old. A lot of us were moving into menopause, and people were struggling with questions that the literature would bring up and would allow us to delve into those places with some trust and safety. And I thought it was interesting because our book group really congealed. It was inspired by the building of trust and the sharing of story. And I think that the story would bring out ours, and ours would sometimes dictate what other books we chose to read. And to get back to the point of an all-white book club, we found that after a while, we were reading literature that pushed people to expand their point of view, to include different perspectives, and to be able to discuss that with a certain amount of, let's say, they brought their questions, their fears, their apprehensions, their difficulties, their embarrassment, their what do I do about this, to the forefront. And the literature would expand that discussion. And I thought it was very interesting because the last book we did was called Books for Living by Will Schwalbe. And he talks about the books that were important to him as a publisher. And he says, this is not he called it a manifesto, but he says, these aren't the books that you ought to read, but these are the books that really struck me as something that you can pass on. And one of the things to a book club, and one of the things he said was, the biggest question that gets the nicest responses and the deepest responses from strangers is, what are you reading? And that the question that you put out there allows for the person to personalize and meet you as a stranger and talk about something that you have in common. And so that it brought out, we lived through the experiences of the characters, but we also brought out our own. And I think in that we were accompanied. And one of the women in our group really went with the question, who are we now and who are we becoming? So where did we come from, which was like when we met 10 years ago? Where are we now in our group and how we read and how we think, and where are we heading to? Where are we becoming? And so those mythic poll questions were really helpful in our group as opposed to just straight out political questions. Because I'm also in a lesbian book club where women from all walks of life come together. You know, they're not all white and they're not all teachers, and that's a very different feisty book group, let me tell you. And they get into fights. Sometimes they leave. Two walked out the other day and said, that's bullshit, I'm not talking about that. And, you know, and so it's very, very interesting because we have a sedate, retired, lovely group of women that like each other, support each other, visit each other. And this group here, wow, we get together for barbecues and we're still talking about the book, even though they might only spend 10 minutes talking about the book in the book circle. And you meet them later and they'll bring it up. You know, Shayla, when you said that, I want to talk about that a little further. So it creates a larger conversation, and certainly a political and a social one, I would say.
All right, Carolyn, I'm going to cut you off. I'm wondering, anybody else want to jump in on how to keep things evolving and keep your conversations genuine, authentic, maybe, and or the whole notion of privilege, or I could be wrong. I could just be wrong, and that's okay. You can say that, Fiona. You're wrong.
Can I chime in?
Of course.
I'm in two book clubs. One is very diverse, and one is, I would say, more privileged white women. And we do have a diversity problem, and it affects the discussion, I find. Especially, I've been trying, because I listen to a lot of books, I've been trying to introduce more books by non-white authors, and the discussion just falls flat. So if we're not getting one from the library where it comes with the discussion papers, it's really hard to get the discussion going on important political issues. I think just because they are kind of sheltered, where they don't have a diverse friend group, or they're not involved in that aspect of our community. Where my other more diverse book club, the discussions are definitely more active and broader.
Thanks, Ken. Don.
The mandate for the book club that I'm in, the gentleman who started it didn't want to read fiction. They wanted to read something that would that they could sink their teeth into in a way that was relevant to what they were doing in school or in their community. And they wanted to look at nonfiction because they wanted to be able to relate it to better related to what they were experiencing in the outside world. And that was the mandate. That's how it started. And so we had two books that we could choose from. There was a vote, and you pick that the book that got picked. You had a week and a half to find it, and then we meet every week and we discuss chapters. As for the book club, white women ideal, it's been very hard for me to find a book club as a guy. I find that, and this is my personal experience, I find that I've been invited to several book clubs, but every time I join a book club, the commentary always evolves to that the book club has changed because I've come in, and that's been a very difficult thing for me to negotiate. But besides that, the book club I'm in right now, we've been having a really great discussion, and I don't mean that in any other way than I've just had difficulty as a guy trying to find a book club.
Dawn, if you've tried any library book clubs, I find there's more males in those.
Yes, I have tried, and I've looked into a couple here in Brampton. I just can't seem to get that, and that for me, the ones at the library, I can't seem to get to them in time from where I am or what I'm doing. But thank you for that. I should look into that again. Thanks, Ken.
Susan had her hand up.
I was just going to challenge Dawn to make your own book club. I think that my book club was a bunch of swim moms, and we're all really busy. I have 4 kids, and a lot of us are driving to the pool at 5 in the morning and back at the end of the day. And so we just made it easy. We don't expect everybody to show up every month, and there's no pressure. Sometimes people have read the book, some people are halfway through, and we just make it as easy as we can. A lot of us are health professionals by background, so I think that really tailors our discussion a little bit into trying to learn about others and how we can help. So we also had Jessie Thistle join our book club, and it was eye-opening for a lot of us that work in healthcare, and it really gave a different perspective, and we got to learn from someone. So I think, you know, if that's what you're looking for, absolutely find some friends and set something up. We find now that we have lots of people that are interested, but we have a core group that really meet together each month.
So Susan, thank you so much. The last question I'm going to have, and I know Donna's alluded to this, as is Ken, have you invited an author to your book club? And the whole kind of premise behind the Authors Book Club is that we try and get book clubs connected to Canadian authors and to support Canadian publishing, but also to get that connection, because you've talked about Jessie Thistle, and Donna, you talked about an author too. So I was wondering, have you invited an author to your book club? Who did you invite, and would you do it again? And would I hopefully join our website? And because we have over 50 authors, and I think most of them would be happy to join you.
That's good to know. I'll just make a comment on that a friend of mine wrote a book, Lynn Golding, and she's from Brampton, and she based it on the stories of her great aunt whose family grew up in small town Ontario. And so she wrote a story around that, what it was like for families as towns develop, people going to war, how life was at that time, people going to war, what it was like for the people in the small towns when the men went off to war, and then what it was like once they came back. So we had Lynn into my house, and I think, Fiona, you came to that session, that one, I think, did you?
Sadly, no.
And so I had my 2 book clubs actually come and attend that. And so we had questions based, and it was interesting. Some people had read the book, some people hadn't, but we had 2 things going on in the meeting. One was wanting to know about the book, but a lot of people were really interested in the process of writing a book. So it was really a personal learning about the activity, the event, about how to write a book. It was surprising, we were really interested in that, and that process and her thought process and when she did it. And everybody in that room is busy, just like everybody in the Zoom meeting. We're all busy. Like, how do you carve out that time that's so important? And then we just talked about what happened in her book. So it was a really good experience. I will let it, just since we're talking about tips, I had her write out some questions for me as well. We already had a book club guide, but I also sort of had her, because she'd already done some speaking. And so although our group had lots of questions, I just had some, as a hostess, I just had some in my hand to get the conversation going, as turned out didn't need it.
We had Will Ferguson, who wrote
lucky you.
419 at one of our book clubs. His child or children went to school with one of our members. And so he came over and sat with our book club. Our book club, we end up having dinner and then we discuss the book. And it's evolved because it used to become too much then, the pressure of making dinner and having book club. So now it's pizza and salad and you read the book. But when Will came, there was a promise of an East Indian meal. So that's what we had. And it was really interesting to have the author come, because it also changes your perspective of the book a little bit. When like a few of us, when we read it, we thought it was an okay book, and there's some parts of it are like, I don't understand, like why did you do this? And so when we discussed with him, we did find out about his process, which is really interesting, because I feel part of the book was based in Calgary as well, so we were able to make that connection. But he also explained kind of why the characters had the journey that they did from his perspective, and it actually gave me a better appreciation for the book after meeting with the author. So that was really fun.
I also, the book club that I'm in has tried to have an author in probably every year. I've only been part of it, I've only been there for one of them, and that was Susan Doherty in The Ghost Garden. Susan wrote for Maclean's for quite a while. The Ghost Garden is a sort of a biography of a friend of hers who's was schizophrenic. It's an amazing book. If you haven't had a chance to read it, I do recommend it. And as Davina has said, it changes the way you see the book. I loved the book in the beginning and found that the author was so generous with her time, that it's something that we always try and do when we pick a book, trying to figure out, do we have a local connection? If it's not a local connection, is there a way of connecting with the author?
I guess I'll finish with my little story. So actually, it was a teacher librarian at Central Peel, the person after Caroline and some of her colleagues left, who recommended to me a book called Kay's Lucky Coin Variety. And she said, the author's pretty local. She's in Toronto. Why don't you reach out to her on Twitter and see if she'll come and join you? And so sure enough, we met Anne at a Brampton restaurant, and the book club paid for her dinner, but we couldn't do much else. And at that conversation, Anne revealed that it was Terry Follis who had said to her, you should always go to book clubs because they are your bread and butter. Those are the people who love books. Those are the people who talk books. Those are the people who spread the word of books. And I said to her flippantly, oh yeah, right, we're going to tweet Terry Follis that you like my book club and he'll come to my next book club. And she goes, sure, let's try it. So in May that year, we had Anne, and in September that year, we had Terry Follis. So that was kind of my introduction to that authors are interested in talking to book clubs. They actually like talking to book clubs. They'll make time to talk to book clubs. And it opened up this whole new world. And since then, Anne and I have become friends, and David and I have started this. And it's amazing what a book will do to open your world, I guess, isn't it? So thank you, everybody, for contributing. Thank you, especially the people who didn't know me and just jumped in on a leap of faith. So Donna, Candace C, Susan, and Davina, especially you guys just took a leap of faith out of a Facebook page, and I really appreciate that. The other friends that I have here or the people that I've worked with, I really appreciate you showing up as well. And have a great evening.